Welcome back to yet another ITB E28 video. In this video, we are going to run through basically my review of this job. If you guys are new here, I like to, when I finish up big projects like this, I like to kind of conclude with a review of how I feel about the car after a couple weeks of enjoying it. Talk about, the difficulty of the swap. I like to talk about what I'm going to talk about in this video, the reliability, the drivability, regrets I have with the swap, what I would do differently, what I enjoy, and basically just an overall was it worth it review, right? So I got all my costs laid out here, and we're gonna just chat, okay? So as you guys know, M30B35 swapped, E28 528E. So there's a lot of different costs here depending on kind of what your project is starting with, okay? So I have it right here. My total cost for this car, and sometimes I don't always talk about this, but for this, I want to disclose it. This entire build, including the cost of the car, cost me about $21,000, which is a lot. And we'll talk about how I feel about that in a second. But that is the car, the engine, and I paid a lot for the engine, ITBs, all that stuff. So take away that. Say you already own a 535 E28 and all you're doing is ITBs, standalone, and basically just that, right? You're not going to rebuild the engine, you're not doing any of that crazy stuff. You're looking at about $3,200, $3,300, $3,400 bucks just for ITBs alone. If you do a B35 swap in an E28 with ITB, so if you basically do exactly what I did, but you're not counting the cost of the car, the coilovers and stuff like that, you're looking at like 12 grand. You need a 12 grand, and that's, you could get the engine cheaper. So all these prices could fluctuate, man. It could be, you could get it all done for 8. You never know. But my costs are about 12 grand for this entire swap. So 12 grand, and what I get out of it, I got maybe 210 wheel. I got a crazy sounding E28. Talk about the driving part later, but basically you get a pretty badass car. Not the fastest car, but again, later we'll talk about that. So to start, what are how do I feel about spending that money on this car? Well, my biggest regret with this swap is the fact of the car I chose to do it in. This car is just weathered paint. It's just not a nice body. And had I known that I was going to have such a fresh drive, well, I knew that, but I mean, fully refreshed, rebuilt, everything refinished. I mean, I went above and beyond. I mean, even a $140 expansion tank just so I had a clear one, not the old yellow one. It's a lot of money and a really, really solid and pretty drivetrain for a car that's just not that pretty. I mean, going around, if you see, I mean, it's got the makeshift E34 rear bumper, makeshift front bumper. The paint and the clear is just failing all over the car. It's just an ugly E28. I haven't found wheels I love for it yet. That'll make it a lot better for me. But for right now, I don't love the wheels. I mean, it's the car itself needs love in other departments. The drivetrain is badass, but the body needs love. The interior is not bad, but suspension needs love. It needs a lot. It's like, if I want to make this car perfect, it would probably be like a $40,000 build, which is just not worth it to me. So I'm not bitter, I'm not regretful, but I wish I started with, well, first off, I wish I started with a 535 because that would have eliminated a lot of the wiring issues, a lot of the stupid stuff that you need when you're putting a M30 in an M20 car. You have an M30 car to start, your life is very simple to do a B35. Or if you just keep your B34 and ITB that, because you could do that too, very simple. But I opted to go above and beyond and do all this and make basically a 528E an actual enjoyable car. And it is super enjoyable. I love it. It is a lot of fun. It was worth doing, and I'm glad I did it. The driving factor alone, the noises alone, make it worth it. But my biggest regret is the car I chose. So just something to kind of take note of. Just, usually I try to find the cleanest cars that I do these intensive builds on. This is the one I just kind of impulse bought, this E28. It is clean, it's not rusty, it's a really nice car, but it needs body work, it needs paint work, and that's expensive and stuff I don't like to do. So I should have kind of put more consideration into that. Otherwise, what I would do differently about this, honestly, I don't think anything. I think I'm thrilled with the ITBs. I love them. They make the car a little finicky, which we'll talk about in the drivability section. But overall, I think the ITBs are very well worth it. They're not the most intuitive, but they are fun. And everyone always talks about, oh, you know, the power to cost. As I said here, I mean, $3,500, maybe a little bit more power, but the noise alone, dude, the people turn their head when you're driving. It sounds like a crazy, like a muscle car, it's like a German muscle car. It sounds insane. The noise and the throttle response alone are worth that cost. I mean, $3,300 and you basically transform your car. It's like similar like putting like a supercharger on a car. Less power, but badass factor. It's there. You know, rebuilding the head, I would redo all that. You know, I would do that. You know, I spent an extra $640 on head work just because I wanted it professionally rebuilt, and you know, decked and new valve stem seals. Basically, so you have a bulletproof engine. So this engine is bulletproof for a long time. No leaks, no nothing. Cooling system's all redone. I mean, it's going to be a solid engine for a long time. And there's nothing I did that I would say, oh, I wouldn't do in the next time. I mean, you should restore I mean, you should do it all, because you find that you kick yourself when you leave out certain things, and then you run into issues, and it makes it for a nightmare, because you think, okay, all this is new, what's left? And it just sucks. It's just better to do it all. You know, rebuild power steering pump, new alternator, new radiator. And at first I kept the original radiator. I had cooling system issues. Ended up spending $230 on a new radiator, or whatever the cost was. $263 for a radiator. So, you know, and the full exhaust, I'm happy with the exhaust. The Ireland Engineering exhaust is great. The Schmiedman headers are great. Fitment, not great. Both needed work, so I can't say that they'll bolt right up for you, but any you know, fabrication shop will take care of it for you and get them fitted for you. So the noise is fantastic. Highly recommend if you want these parts in terms of noise. Every part, I'm thrilled. The RHD kit, great. Everything is great. It is a really fun car. Difficulty now. You know, this car taught me a lot, actually. It taught me a lot of wiring. I mean, I completely, you know, redid a lot of this engine harness to make it work. A lot of electrical troubleshooting. The ITBs themselves, the instructions are kind of garbage, to be honest. Like, they get you there, but you really have to have a brain, right? Like, you got to be able to look at the diagram and say, that's how that's going to go, because it's confusing if you try to read, like the J-spring adjuster. Words don't really help you with that. Like, you kind of need to just see it. And I mean, I was able to get by with, I think I asked Rama, the owner of RHD, once or twice, because they have weird TPS instructions on how to, you know, test the voltage. Literally just get a Mega Squirt, get a whatever ECU master, and it'll calibrate it for you, and you don't have to worry about anything. You cannot run this on a stock ECU. I mean, you literally can't, but just don't even try anyway. I'm happy with the Mega Squirt. ECU master would probably be a little bit more, you know, dial it in, but I'm happy with the ECU master. I'm happy with the tune, or I'm happy with the Mega Squirt. I'm happy with the tune. Shout out to Jack Stoll again. If you need a Mega Squirt or anything tuned, hit that guy up. He is the best. Remote tune this thing. Super responsive. It was well worth the money. So yeah, the tune's great. Everything's great. Tuning is difficult. I don't know how to do it. Fabrication, I don't do it. Building all this, I did, and yeah, it wasn't overly difficult. If you've done an engine swap, it's about the same thing. Rebuilding an M30 is pretty easy. I mean, I have all the videos on it if you need a guide. Running the ITBs is probably the more challenging part, just setting everything up properly, and then obviously wiring the B35 into the E28, since the harness connectors are all different. That's a bit of a pain, but if you watch my video, it should be a lot easier. So I would say it's probably a pretty advanced project. I found it to be actually decently challenging. Like, figuring out the electronic stuff actually put me in a place where I don't think I've ever been with a car in terms of not being able to figure it out what's wrong. So I don't know. I want to put a number to it, but it's kind of hard. You know, like maybe like a 7 difficulty level, maybe an 8, maybe a 9. I don't know. I don't know how difficult things can get, but it's a BMW engine and a BMW, so that right there tells you that it's not as hard as it can be. So I'd probably say a 7. But yeah, I mean, expensive as hell build, but it was fun. Now we're gonna get into the drivability and reliability talk, which I'll just hop in the car and drive for. So relatively tricky build at a very high price, I would say. I mean, my S52 E34, which outperforms this, cost me, I mean, literally, I think $0 after I sold off the M50 and stuff, and I got everything for good prices, and I part out E34, so a lot of it's free. But I would say that E34 cost me definitely less than 10K to build, less than 8, probably around the 5 mark, to be honest with you. But again, it would cost the average person more, but I have all the E34 connections and stuff. So, and that, like I said, outperforms this. This, I think, is a lot more badass with the ITBs, but the performance isn't, I mean, $12,000 of performance to make a 528E a 535 with ITBs. I don't know. That's kind of up to you. The noise, I would say, is worth it. I'm not mad. I'm happy I built the car, but I would have picked a better car. I would have picked a Forever chassis. This isn't a Forever chassis. That's the thing. So I think it'd be better to pick a better car starting, like a mint E28 535 would be the best baseline for doing something like this. Will this be a keeper car? No, I will be selling it. I want to recoup costs. I got a lot of other projects and cars lined up for business-related purposes. I don't really need to hold on to this long-term project. It cost me a lot and took me way too long to build. So, yeah, for the rest of this video, we're going to hop in and drive, talk about the drivability and reliability. So I'll see you in the car. Now into the drivability and the fun factor. I figured why not just hop in the car and drive to discuss these things. So starting off the drivability of this car, it is in the sense, it is perfect if you're talking drivability like, oh, you modified your car and now it's like so crazy to where you can't really drive it. Like, could you still daily drive this car? And the answer is absolutely yes. It is basically a stock engine, right? It's an M30B35, so a little bit bigger than what would come stock, but it's not like you put an LS or like a big turbo engine or something crazy like that. It is still the true inline six that this car from factory basically had, meaning it's fine. Like it's not crazy to drive, it's not overly intense, extremely drivable. I mean, standard 5-speed. There is literally nothing about this car that is intense. It's got the upgraded clutch setup, but the clutch is soft. It's not overly hard. It engages nicely. Literally, it's just perfect. The drivability of this car is fantastic. As you find out, when you are doing, when you're doing builds that have factory engines and stuff. That's why I like to do stuff like this. So you basically made it more unique. You made it more exciting, but you retained the factoriness, and that's why it still feels like a solid old BMW. So drivability is fantastic. I have no complaints. But now, reliability as drivability, and what I mean by that is, like, basically, is it the same thing every time you get in it, right? Is it dead nuts reliable? You turn the key, you're driving, there's nothing. And that is where I think the ITBs have a little bit of their flaw, whereas it's not unreliable. Like, it's not like, half the time it doesn't run, half the time you can't get it started, or it's having issues, but ITBs are really, really picky about, like, just anything, because, I mean, you're running just kind of open air stacks with a TPS based tune, right? And that's, what my tuner said going in. He said, look, your Alpha N is not, it's not my preferred way of tuning, because it's kind of a crappy way to tune, but you cannot do anything else with ITBs. Like, you are basically stuck with an Alpha N tune, which is TPS based, not load based, right? So, like, you're depending on the density of the air, the weather, the car, you can just tell it'll have, like, it's like little prissy fit, like little hiccups. Like, I've noticed lately, like, driving it, they sometimes my idle, like, surges, and there's no explanation to it aside from, like, I have to, like, manually shove the linkage further, and I think I might just have to re-lube my linkages, But either way, even to say I have to relube my linkages, otherwise it hangs the revs and it started like hiccups, is kind of stupid. Like that's an issue you would never have with a stock B35 with a stock intake, right? So like there's stuff like that. Like it doesn't get wildly out of spec, but you could just tell. Honestly, there's some days it runs better than others. Like I find myself a lot of times off a cold start or even like a warm start, but it hasn't been running for a little bit. It like struggles to rev. Like it doesn't. It's not like it hiccups and it kind of bogs, and it seems like it's not very happy. Once it's warmed up and you've been driving it, you can rev it all you want. But before you are driving it, it kind of just like stutters a lot if you try to rev it. Again, just weird ITB things. It's hard to really put your finger on what it is, right? I mean, it's a freshly redone car, freshly tuned. There's nothing in the tune or about the car itself that tells you something's wrong. It's kind of just the reality of running ITB stacks. I talked to my buddy with open trumpets on his S54. He's same thing, basically. Like sometimes it runs like crap when it's cold, sometimes it's fine. Just very picky, right? Not enough to where I'd say, oh, I regret this, but just something to kind of think about if you were wanting to go down this road. It's not horrible, but could be better. Fun factor now this is the exciting stuff. So this car is undoubtedly a load of fun. I mean, the exhaust note itself, I mean, like, hold on, let's just... Like, come on, it sounds like nothing else, really. It is an amazing sounding car, and you will not get sick of that noise. The induction howl that this thing has is just like second to none. Amazing. Straight line speed, I mean, this thing's crazy, right? It just keeps on revving. It's like, when is it gonna redline? You have no idea. The gears are so long. But yeah, straight line speed, it is quick, but it is not anything very impressive, I will say. Like it is not any more impressive than, I think, like a stock S52. It is like, it's peppy, and I think where this car really shines is the peppiness of the throttle. I mean, like corners, like it's instant throttle response, as you'd imagine, which I think is the most, the coolest slash best feature of the ITBs and the fun factor of the car. Straight line, it is not going to blow you away, and that comes down to, it's a B35 with ITBs. That's like that's a lot of mods for an E28, but it just isn't like, whoa, you know, like if you wanted whoa, I would do like, you probably want like over 250 horsepower, whereas this is probably at like the 220 mark, maybe. I'm talking wheel too, so maybe not even. It could be like 205 wheel. I really don't know, but so it's not gonna like impress you by any means. Like I had Eustace driving, he said, "Man, this thing's slow." Hurt my feelings a little bit, but it is what it is. He's got an S54 E36, and that's a lot. I think that's a lot crazier of a feeling than this. So I still like it, I still enjoy it, and I still have a lot of fun with it, but it's not like, whoa, like it's not like a 500 horsepower turbo car. It's not gonna like exhilarate you to no end, but it is exhilarating and it is a lot of fun, and the ITBs and the throttle response is the heart of that fun factor. But like power, straight line power, nothing too crazy. So those are basically my driving wise things that we could talk about here. Just as a final conclusion to this video, you know, where I'm at with this car, I'm glad I bought it. I'm glad I built it. I think the cost to the fun factor may not be there, to be honest with you guys, because this car costs a lot of money to build, like a lot. It was this car. I have over $20,000 invested in this car. Let's just put it that way. That is including the cost of the car, and I did pay not a lot for this car. So let's take the, you know, and sometimes I'm not really upfront about the cost of things because I don't want to be, but for this I am going to be, because I think people should know, because if I ever want to sell it, getting my money out of it's going to be hard. Is this a car that down the road stays or goes? This will not be a keeper in the collection. I'm just not, I'm not in love with it enough to keep it. I have a lot of other exciting projects, a lot of other exciting cars, to where this is just kind of like, I'd rather get my money back out of it. And that's the problem, is I probably won't be able to get my money back out of it, which is what sucks. So you live and you learn. It was still a fun project. It's still a fun ass car. Yeah, so I think I usually do like a 2 thumbs up or 1 thumb up. 2 thumbs up drivability wise, but like at the side you guys don't see on YouTube, which is like what my car really is, and you guys, you know, it looks better on camera, let's be honest. Yeah, it's like a 1 thumbs up. It could have been, I could have executed things a little bit better. So anyway, we're gonna end it there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review of this car. I hope if you're kind of thinking about going down this road, it kind of guided you into if you really do want to go down this road, or if you don't. If you have a really nice E30, E28 or whatever, E24, and you want to do ITBs on an M30, don't hesitate. I would do it. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's not crazy expensive. I mean, we got to talk about the build. This build was so expensive because I had to do engine replacements. I had to do 528E to 535 stuff, manual swap stuff. If you're talking just ITBs, it is like, I would say, give yourself $5 grand. So it's a lot, and it's a lot for the power that just ITBs alone get you, but still, I wouldn't let it deter you. It's a good time. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.